A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Islamic Lessons Made Easy right here on Children's Ahlul Bayt TV. I'm so excited to be with you all. We've got a jam-packed session. We've got so much we want to share with all of you. And before we get right into it, I do want to remind myself, I'm going to also remind all of you that inshallah on Monday this week we have a lunar eclipse happening right here in England. Check your calendars to see when or if a lunar eclipse is happening where you live. If you stay with us during the rest of the session, inshallah, today we are going to be covering what a lunar eclipse is, and we'll show you a model, inshallah, and what you and I need to do when a lunar eclipse is happening. So stay with us, inshallah. Now, to get us started, we've been learning a lot about the rules of reciting the Holy Quran. Today is no different. Inshallah, we're going to be learning about the rules of Meem today. So watch with me to see the different ways in which we pronounce the letter Meem when we come across it in the Holy Quran.
If after a Meem sakin there appears another Meem, idgham with ghunna will take place. In other words, the two Meems will merge together and the sound is made entirely by the nose through the nasal passage, holding it for 2 counts, keeping your lips closed. For example, in this verse we see a Meem sakin and after it another Meem. So if I am going to read these 2 words, it will read as lakum min. I closed my lips, the M sound came through the nasal passage and I held it for 2 counts. If after a Meem sakin there appears the letter Ba, ikhfa will take place. This means it is pronounced with a light nasal sound in the nose for 2 counts, keeping the lips slightly open. The sound of the Meem is hidden and the lips are shaped, ready to pronounce the Ba. In this verse we see a Meem sakin, i.e. with no vowel on it, followed by the letter Ba. So if I am going to read these 2 words, it will read as fahkum baynahum. I brought a light nasal sound through my nose, ready to pronounce the letter Ba, and held it for 2 counts. If after a Meem sakin there appears any other letter besides Meem or Ba, the Meem must be pronounced clearly. For example, here it says lahum. My lips came together as should when saying the Meem clearly.
So watch me make 2 sounds and decide which one is more nasal and which one is hollow. You ready? Lam. Which one did you think was more hollow? If you said that the second was more hollow, you're absolutely right. If we do the first sound together, put your finger on your nose and try with me. You're going to feel where the vibrations are happening. Ready? Where did you feel the vibration? I felt it right here in my mouth and some in my nose. That makes it a more nasal sound. So, we've been talking about all these rules, but we also have been learning about the different letters of the alphabet. Last week, we learnt about the letter Sheen. The Sheen makes a snaking sound. Today, we learn about its brother, the letter Sheen. The letter Sheen looks exactly like the letter Sheen, except it's got 3 dots at the top.
This letter is called Sheen. It is similar to the previous letter, Sheen, but it has 3 dots on top. Sheen is a light letter and should not be pronounced heavy. Sheen makes a similar sound to the SH in the word show or the word shoe. This is what Sheen looks like at the beginning, like this in the middle, and like this at the end of a word. Here are some examples. Sheen in the word shams, which means sun, or the word shajara, which means tree.
The letter Sheen reminds me of a shining shams, like the shining sun, with the 3 bright lights on the top. Speaking of Shams, the sun, it gets dark so quickly and the sun goes into hiding so quickly nowadays. We need to be especially mindful of our Salat times. Before we pray, you know that we need to wash ourselves. This is called wudu. This is called wudu, and this is in order to prepare ourselves even if we're already clean. Did you know that there's a special dua to keep in mind when we perform our wudu? Watch with me to find out what it talks about or what it says.
In the name of Allah and by Allah, all praise is for Allah who made water pure and did not make it impure. In the name of Allah and by Allah, O Allah, make me of those who often repent and make me of those who purify themselves. O Allah, instill in me my proof on the day I meet you and make my tongue fluent with your remembrance. O Allah, do not deprive me of the fragrance of paradise and make me of those who smell its fragrance, its breeze, and its perfume. O Allah, brighten my face on the day when some faces shall darken, and do not darken my face on the day when some faces shall brighten. O Allah, give me my book of deeds in my right hand, and make a permanent stay in paradise with ease, and account me for my deeds with an easy accounting. O Allah, do not give me my book of deeds in my left hand, nor from behind my back, and do not chain it to my neck. I seek refuge with you from the garments made from the hellfire. O Allah, surround me in your mercy, your blessings, and your pardon. O Allah, keep me firmly on the path on the day when feet shall stumble, and let my efforts be in those things that make you pleased with me, O possessor of majesty and bounty.
The whole dua is beautiful, but my personal favorite is when we ask Allah to make our faces bright on the day of reckoning, on the day of judgment. In order to have bright faces on that day, we need to do nice and bright deeds right here in this world. When we do wudu, after we've just washed our hands or come out of the shower, it helps us to become spiritually pure. Just like wudu helps us become spiritually pure, in some of our other episodes, we've talked about being spiritually pure and spiritually impure, even if the item itself is clean. So we have two terms. We've learned about these ones before, najis and tahir. And sometimes we get confused if anything that is wet is considered najis or tahir. Let's watch our friend explain some examples.
When we are not sure something is najis, we should assume it is tahir. For example, I was playing in the mud. Now my clothes are dirty. Are my clothes najis? Is mud najis? No. Things like blood and urine are najis, not mud. When we are not sure something is najis, we should assume it is tahir. Another example. I was exercising and a lot of sweat came on my body. Is sweat najis? Am I najis? No. Things like blood and urine are najis, not sweat. When we are not sure something is najis, we should assume it is tahir. Last example. I walked into a dirty bathroom. There was rubbish everywhere. The floor was also wet. I accidentally stepped into the wet area. Am I najis now? Do I know if it was urine or water? I am not sure. When we are not sure something is najis, we should assume it is tahir.
I thought that helped a lot. Imagine, Allah is so kind to us. He doesn't want us to worry about every little thing. And even though sweat is wet, it's not najis. I still think we should clean ourselves or shower as soon as we come back inside. That's gross. What do you think? You know, when we say Allah has taken care of everything in this world, I was reading a book. I was reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar recently, just a few days ago, and I wondered if the caterpillar really did eat all of those foods. So I checked online and watched some videos about how the caterpillar really becomes a butterfly. Watch with me on this next video to find out how.
A butterfly rests its eggs on a leaf. Allah has taught the mother of this egg to place the egg on the leaf so that the baby will be able to eat. These eggs hatch a young caterpillar and it will need to eat from the leaf it was born on. Then it starts feeding on more leaves and starts to grow. Once it has finished growing, it curls itself up into a ball to form a cocoon, which will be its home for a little while. Although we cannot see it from the outside, on the inside, Allah is turning this caterpillar into something beautiful. After a little while, the cocoon cracks open and a beautiful butterfly comes out. Because its wings have been folded inside the cocoon, it has to wait for a couple of hours until they stretch out and then they can start flying. After a while, the butterfly lays eggs on a leaf and this cycle starts again. This is only one of Allah's many miracles in His creation. Miracles are happening every day whether we see them or not. The butterfly teaches us that not only can Allah create whatever He wants, but He can also change His creation from one thing to another. When we see or hear something amazing like this, we should say, Subhanallah. Remembering Allah when we see something amazing is one of the ways of getting closer to Allah.
Isn't it incredible? Allah takes care of the egg of a butterfly that's sitting on a small leaf and gives it enough food before the egg hatches. It comes out of its shell, and then the caterpillar becomes so uncomfortable in its tiny cocoon, and then he can get his wings to fly freely. You know, sometimes it takes being really uncomfortable to find God and to follow His teachings, and reminding ourselves that He doesn't forget us at all. It can be difficult for us to remember, but it can be especially difficult for our friends who aren't necessarily born Muslim. Sometimes they don't have friends or family who are Muslim, so they have to start from scratch. So it makes their work even more difficult. Here are some tips to help make life a little bit easier for them, inshallah.
As a new Muslim, you will have trouble keeping up with prayers every day, fasting during Ramadan, and many other practices in this religion. The struggle that you face is difficult and will take some time. If you have problems with certain practices, then gradually work yourself into the mindset of worship. Keeping up with your devotional practices is something that will strengthen your faith. You will start to feel a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will become used to Islam as a religion and a way of life. Always respect your parents. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "One who pleases his parents has verily pleased Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." Keeping up a good relationship with your family is essential. Try to avoid bringing up or taking part in controversial subjects regarding religion. This is almost unavoidable, but your parents will eventually accept that Islam is not going to turn you into a terrorist if you stay calm during these tense moments. Gradually, your parents will gain some respect and understanding of Islam. Find a teacher. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, "There is no treasure more profitable than knowledge." You might have an endless stream of questions. Finding a knowledgeable teacher will clarify things you hear on Sheikh Google or any part of the Holy Quran you are reading at that time. This will help you build a solid foundation in the Islamic tradition. Keep away from debates and arguments. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam said, "Humbleness is to abandon disputation even if one is right." Trying to constantly defend your religion is something that will cause you a lot of stress. When you first accept Islam, it may seem like that the whole world is after you and could be an overwhelming experience. The best thing to do is to avoid these arguments at all costs unless someone is willing to learn. Maintain your identity. In the Holy Quran it says, "O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another." Being a Muslim is a huge part of your identity now. This doesn't mean you can't watch the football on Sundays or talk to your friends and etc. If there are things in your culture that do not directly contradict with the basic Islamic creed, then you are welcome to keep those things in your life. Force yourself to go to the masjid. This will open many doors for you and will grant you many good deeds to your account. You will meet people who are connected to Islam, networking opportunities are more readily available, and you are bound to make long-lasting friends. Avoid loneliness. This is a major problem in the revert community. The best thing we can do to fight the feeling of loneliness is to spend as much time as possible with good company. Try not to lock yourself away in your apartment to avoid the world. Make it an obligation on yourself to remain a sociable human being. It takes a lot of work, but the result is happiness and contentment in life. Do not despair. Imam Ali alayhi salam said the greatest of afflictions is cutting off hope. Being a revert to Islam, you will face a lot of tribulations. There is not anything that you cannot overcome though, and never despair on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah guided you to Islam, you searched for the answer and you found it. Be happy and constantly remind yourself of the blessings in your life.
You know, we said that sometimes they don't have family or friends, and so it's our responsibility to make life a little bit easier for them. We can try to include them in our celebrations, when we've got birthday parties, or when we've got commemorations and we are sad about, for example, Imam al-Hussein. You know, I think their journeys are incredibly inspiring, and sometimes the questions that they ask really makes me appreciate all the little details that Allah has taken care of that I have taken for granted. Especially when it comes to Allah's mercy or God's mercy. You know, speaking of God's mercy, remember we said that this week we've got a lunar eclipse coming up. I told you that in my country where I live, it's happening on Monday. So let me show you what happens when a lunar eclipse is happening. Okay, so I've got some fruits and veggies to show you. Are you ready? So the largest one is going to be our sun. Our middle one is going to be our earth, and our baby one is going to be the moon. So I've got a pomegranate, I've got an onion, and I've got a lemon, or a lime actually. Ready? So we've got the sun, and normally this is how it works. So we've got the moon, and we've got the sun, we've got the moon, and then we've got the earth, and they're all swiveling around. But when a lunar eclipse happens, the earth actually comes between the sun and the moon. So normally the light of the sun reflects on the moon, and that's when we see a shining moon where we live at night. But when a lunar eclipse is happening, the earth actually blocks the light from the sun from hitting the moon. Okay, so this isn't ordinary, and it causes disruptions in the way that the solar system is designed. And we must remember Allah's might and power. For this, we have to offer a salah. This is called Salat Al-Ayat. Watch the video to see how this salah is prayed simply.
Any unusual act of nature, whether it causes a disaster or not, like an earthquake, sun or moon eclipse, total or partial, and even severe thunder and lightning, is a sign, an ayah of Allah's power. When we experience any such sign of Allah and the conditions are met, all baligh, sane Muslim men and women pray a special salah called Salat Al-Ayat, the prayer of signs. So the prayer becomes wajib when there is a solar or lunar eclipse, whether partial or full, and even if you do not have any fear from it. It becomes obligatory due to an earthquake. It is a recommended precaution to pray Salat Al-Ayat during events such as thunder and lightning, red and black cyclones and other similar celestial phenomena which frightens most of the people. The prayer is only wajib for the people of the area in which the event occurs. The time for performing Salat Al-Ayat for a solar or lunar eclipse commences from the moment the eclipse begins, and it continues until the sun or the moon goes back to its normal state. However, once the eclipse is over, the prayer becomes qada. The method of performance. The prayer consists of 2 rak'ahs and 10 rukus. Each rak'ah has 5 rukus. There are 2 methods in which one can perform the prayer. Method 1. Niyyah. I am praying Salat Al-Ayat wajiban qurbatan ila Allah. Then Takbiratul Ihram. Allahu Akbar. Recite Surah Al-Fatiha and another surah. Perform ruku'. Thereafter, one should stand straight and recite Surah Al-Fatiha and another surah again. Then perform ruku' again. Continue this action for 5 times all up. After the 5th ruku', we perform 2 sajdas. This becomes our first rak'ah. Now we stand up again to perform the 2nd rak'ah in the same manner as was done in the first rak'ah. Now recite tashahhud and taslim, and that's it. In total, you will have prayed 2 rak'ahs that have 10 rukus. Method 2 is a little shorter. First perform your intention, then Takbiratul Ihram, Allahu Akbar. Now recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Now we choose a surah and split it into 5 parts. Note, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim cannot make up one of the 5 parts on its own. We have chosen Surah Al-Qadr. So we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Then we do ruku', Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdi. That is the first ruku'. Then stand up and say, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. Then ruku', Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdi. That is the second. Then stand up and say the 3rd verse. Then ruku', that is now the 3rd ruku'. Then stand up and say the 4th verse. Then ruku', that is now the 4th ruku'. Then stand up and say the 5th verse. Salamun hi hatta matla'il fajr. Then ruku', Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdi. That is now the 5th ruku'. Stand up straight saying Allahu Akbar. Do your 2 sajdas. Rise up for your 2nd rak'ah now and perform it in the same way as the first. At the end, recite tashahhud and salam after the 2 sajdas. Note, if a woman is in a state of haid and an eclipse or earthquake occurs, it is not obligatory on her to perform Salat Al-Ayat, and nor does she have to make it up.
Normally, like we said, that the light from the sun shines on the moon, and that's what we see at night. But when the earth comes in between the sun and the moon, it blocks the light from reaching the moon. So that way we don't see it at night in the sky. So check what happens when you experience the lunar eclipse this week. And when you're done reciting Salat Al-Ayat, maybe the next day, you can make your own model. You can use cardboard, you can use styrofoam balls, or you can just use fruits and veggies that you might have in your pantries. Can you imagine that we get to remember Allah at all times, and He's taught us exactly how, so that we aren't confused. It's really no surprise that associating partners or making partners to Allah is wrong and even unforgivable. Let's watch to learn more about this concept of shirk.
Shirk has different levels. There is shirk regarding the essence of God. What do we mean? This is to believe that God in His very essence is more than one. For example, believing that there is a God of rain and a God of thunder, or believing in demigods, believing in a God of good and a God of evil. Tawheed with regards to the essence of God means believing that the essence of the Lord of the universe is only one. Shirk in the attributes of God is to believe that the attributes are separate from His essence. In other words, when we say that He is all-knowing or all-powerful, we do not mean that His knowledge or power is separate from who He is and that He acquired it. To understand this better, Think of any of these attributes in humans. When we say a person has knowledge, we know that they did not have that knowledge at birth, and that it was acquired. And when a person grows old, their knowledge may change or reduce. This is not the case for God. Shirk in the actions of God is to believe that there is anyone or anything else that sustains us or gives us our needs independent of God. For example, you believing that a doctor or some needle and pills can cure you. Or when we are sick and a doctor cures us, it is actually God curing us through the doctor and the medicine. Shirk in obedience means to obey anyone else against God's orders. In other words, because God himself is ordering us to obey his messenger and ulil amr, therefore obeying them is not a form of shirk. Committing sins is a form of shirk in the obedience of God as well. Why? Because a person who obeys their desires or the whispers of shaitan is obeying two masters or disobeying God. Shirk in worship is like worshipping God outwardly only, but in their heart they worship something besides God, such as wealth or their job and so on. For example, if a person is watching their favorite TV show and it's time for Salah, who do they choose? If they ignore Salah, it shows that they idolize and worship the TV show more than God himself. Another danger and form of shirk in the worship of God is when a person worships God but their intention is not to worship Allah alone. Another example, they may pray to God, but they also desire to show off to others who are around them.
Do you remember we learnt the letter Sheen today? Shirk also starts with Sheen. I know for sure after watching that video that I will be watching my clock a lot better to make sure I'm not engrossed in a live game, I'm not playing with my friends or with my siblings if Allah is inviting me to pray at that time. You know, I know that sometimes we think, I can't believe I have to wake up so early to pray in the morning when I wake up for Fajr. But if we shift our perspective and we think of it as Allah is inviting me, I'm so special that Allah wants me to come to Him early in the morning, and I'm special enough to be invited by Allah. You know, it makes the whole waking up process, the cold water of wudu in the morning, and the praying so much more beautiful. It's like the boy in this next video.
A blind boy sat next to a building with a hat in his hand. He also had a sign which said, "I am blind, please help." There were only a few coins in the hat. A man was walking by. He took a few coins from his pocket and dropped them into the hat. Then he started to think for a second. He then took the sign, turned it around, and wrote some words. He put the sign back so that everyone who walked by would see the new words. Soon the hat began to fill up. A lot more people were given money to the blind boy. That afternoon, the man who had changed the sign came to see how things were. The boy recognized his footsteps and asked,
Hey.
"Were you the one who changed my sign this morning? What did you write?" The man said, "I only wrote the truth. I said what you said, but in a different way." What he had written was, "Today is a beautiful day, and I cannot see it." Do you think the first sign and the second sign were saying the same thing? Of course both signs told the people the boy was blind, but the first sign simply said the boy was blind. The second sign told people that they were so lucky that they were not blind. Should we be surprised that the second sign was more effective? The Holy Quran says, "It is He who has created for you hearing, sight, and hearts. Little thanks you give."
You know, that man that helped the boy, he had a shift in perspective. Have you ever tried to change how you look at something that's bothering you or something that's difficult for you? You know, this also reminds us that we should be mindful of how to make someone else's day better by shifting our own perspective. That man could have easily just put some money in and gone on his way, but no, he decided that with his shift in perspective, he was going to help the other boy. Stay safe and please remember us in your dua. Join us again next week on another episode of Islamic Lessons Made Easy right here on Ahlul Bayt TV. Inshallah, see you soon.